What is up, people? It's your boy, that channel YouTuber here, and welcome to another Pokemon video. A few weeks ago I made a community post where I was asking you guys to vote on what generation you want to see my next video take place at. At the time of recording this video, Generation 4 has taken the crown. However, the video I have for you today is not the video I made the community post for. Recording that video turned out to take way longer than expected, so it's probably gonna be the video after this one instead. Unless I want to do something with Mystery Dungeon DX, but I'm not quite sure. For now, let's just say back-to-back Generation 4 videos, and considering you guys voted for that in the community post, I hope that makes any of you happy. Anyway, let's get to today's topic of discussion. The literal god of Pokemon, Arceus. When I was thinking about the idea that I just postponed, I got a little side quest idea around Arceus, the best overall stat Pokemon to ever exist. With a whopping 720 base stats, it literally beats everybody, and is thus worthy of being titled the God of Pokemon. So this got me wondering, this Pokemon is incredibly strong, so what if I weaken it down and do something dumb with it? So it was at this point that I decided to figure out what the lowest possible level is at which this absolute beast can beat the Sinnoh League. But that seemed a little bit too easy. I could just teach it swagger and confuse Hex to win, or do the same bullshit with Mud Slap and make my opponent miss every time. Then, on top of that, I talked about this in the livestream chat of a speedrunner I watch, Araya, go watch him by the way. And he said I could also just focus sash it and stall out my opponent's PP by continuously using potions and them struggling themselves to death. If I did any of this, the answer would be really simple. It can be done at level 1. But what if I don't use any bullshit moves that make my opponent fail to hit me, making me cheat my way to a win? Then what would be the lowest level? Surely it wouldn't be level 1, right? So yeah, the rules are pretty simple for this one. I'll allow anything, from health items to TMs, but I won't be using any bullshit moves. Also, I won't be teaching Arceus any moves that it would learn at a higher level than the level I'm using it at. This video isn't meant to be a quote-unquote try at home video. This will not be possible in a single try. There's too much RNG involved to make these fights work. So what I'm trying to say is, I will be using save states. If you hate that shit, then this is where you should leave the video. Just see it as solving a really difficult math equation. Technically, it's possible. You just need insane RNG and way too much time. Also, I will turn off any experience gain to make sure Arceus defeats all of the league at the same level. And for this video, I decided to just do the Pokemon League, because I firmly do believe that if Arceus can beat the league, it would have been able to defeat the previous gyms and such as well. I skipped the rest of the game to save time and to keep my sanity pretty much, because if I don't pick the right level, then I need to play the entire game 2 times, 3 times, you name it. It's just not something I really want to do, okay? Anyway, to top it off, I decided to start at level 20. Considering even the lowest Pokemon here was 30 plus levels higher than me, I figured this was a good starting point. I gave Arceus a diverse moveset that, in my opinion, pretty much deals with all of the typings this league has to offer. On top of that, I figured starting off with a Life Orb was a good idea to get some extra damage off and to make the fights a little faster basically. But after just the first 2 Elite Four members, I already noticed that doing this at level 20 turned out to be way too fucking easy. I still spent a couple of hours recording this level 20 attempt and I wanted to get some use out of it, so let me take this opportunity to explain how I was going to set up against each Elite Four member and of course Cynthia. Before I start the first fight against Aaron, let me just apologize in advance. This time I played on a different version of Desmume, if that's how you pronounce it, and apparently the windows were sized different than usual, so on the left, the top of the screen is a little cut off, and on the right, the bottom is a little cut off. It looks kinda annoying, stupid and unprofessional, but I'm sorry, okay? I'm a noob. This is why I don't get any subscribers anymore. Anyway, Aaron starts off with a very weak Dustox, which was a perfect opponent to execute my plan on. My plan was to use 6x attacks, 6x defenses, 6x special attacks and a dire hit to get more crits, and I would do that against every single one of these Elite Four members and against Cynthia. So this Dustox has a super ass set, it has Light Screen, Toxic, Bug Buzz and Double Team, which means I can pretty much set up every turn, using a few potions here and there in between. The only thing I had to look out for were the occasional Bug Buzz special defense drops, which would obviously make me reset to my previous save state, so it didn't happen. Because well, I needed every single special defense point I could get. On top of that, after using just 2 X special defenses, Bug Buzz already did less than half HP. So I used all my X items in no time pretty much, and I swept Aaron with a level 20 fucking Arceus. The second fight, however, is even easier. Just like Aaron, the name I can't pronounce has a terrible lead. She has a Quagsire with Double Team, Dig, Protect and Sandstorm. Once again, setting up was the easiest thing in the world, because this Quagsire wasn't able to touch me at all. I only had to reset a few times to not use up too much PP on missing moves, because it double teamed a bunch, but other than that, this fight was a walk in the park and I was easily able to set up. Now, in this next fight against Flint is where things get a tad bit annoying. You see, Flint leads off with a Rapidash that knows Sunny Day, Flare Blitz, Solar Beam and Bounce. Unlike the 2 others, this isn't as easy to set up against. Rapidash is a decent Pokemon, and especially in the earlier stages of setting up, I had to use a lot of potions to survive its attacks. On top of that, even after using a bunch of X defense, Step, Flare Blitz and Sun still did a shit ton of damage. So I kind of had to move around that by resetting for non-Flare Blitz RNG in Sun. And considering it really wants to use Flare Blitz in Sun, this took me quite a while. But yeah, even though it takes a little longer to set up against this Rapidash, Bounce and Solar Beam without Sun basically gave me so much room to set up because they're 2-turn moves. Then it was already time for the final Elite Four member, Lucian. He leads off with a Mr. Mime that knows Psychic, Thunderbolt, Reflect and Light Screen. Once again, this moveset is perfect for setting up my X items. On the first 2 turns it usually sets up dual screens, and thus I was able to use 2 X special defenses with an additional third on the turn he was attacking me. As a result of this, he wasn't able to touch me at all while setting up, and I was easily able to sweep his entire team. So yeah, long story short, without too much trouble I already reached Cynthia, one of the most annoying league champions of all time. Her lead, however, made this fight very easy. She leads off with a Spirit Tomb which knows Dark Pulse, Psychic, Silver Wind and Embargo. This would have been an annoying moveset if Spirit Tomb had good special attack. The thing is, its special attack is very mediocre. Because of this, just a few X special defenses were more than enough to make this thing unable to hit me at all. And I only had to make sure Silver Wind didn't raise its stats because that would be a problem. But other than that, just like the 4 previous trainers, this moveset, this Pokemon really allowed me to set up everything I wanted. So yeah, after setting up against each Pokemon I just mentioned, all Pokemon of all 5 of these trainers died in 2 or 3 hits, while not even being able to touch me for more than half of my HP. Even hard hitters such as Lucario, Medicham and Garchomp couldn't do shit against this beast. Arceus really didn't need long to prove why it's the actual god of Pokemon. And thus, Arceus was able to beat the league at level 20 really easily. I was gonna consider not putting the level 20 part in this video, but this still took me a bunch of hours to record and I didn't want to waste the footage, so I recorded it all anyway. Besides, at least I was already able to explain setting up against all 5 of their leads, so I don't really have to do this in my next attempt. Considering Arceus took all of them down so easily, I decided to cut its level by 25% for my next attempt, which means it was level 15, in case you're bad at math. The lower the level, the more threats would arise, and it really felt like it in this attempt, even though I feel like the footage doesn't necessarily show it. Because I calculated that a lot of these Pokemon would do more than half HP with every single move, I decided to swap its Life Orb for Leftovers, because Leftovers would just about save me from dying in 2 hits, making my life a little easier. So here we are, back at Aaron's place. You already know how I was planning to set up against his Dustox, but this time its Bug Buzz was able to damage me a bunch more. Luckily the rest of its moveset is complete garbage, and other than making sure Bug Buzz didn't drop my special defense, and resetting a few times when I missed a lot of moves due to his double teams, setting up and taking it down was pretty easy. Even though I was 5 levels lower than last attempt, and taking each mon down to considerably longer, Aaron's team is just too weak to even threaten me a little bit. Like, he honestly just fucking sucks. Vespiquen died in 2 hits, Beautifly died in 3 hits, And Drapion did take a little longer, but none of its attacks did more than half HP, so I was able to get 2 hits off every time. The biggest threat in this fight is honestly Heracross. 3 out of 4 of its attacks did more than half HP. Close Combat was an instant kill, Mega Horn was almost an instant kill, and most of Stone Edge's damage rolls did more than half HP. Luckily, Stone Edge and Mega Horn have a terrible accuracy, and it also occasionally used Night Slash. So, after quite some time, I was able to hex my way through the fight that way. After a rather uneventful, but very slow fight, we arrived at Bertha's Desert Room once again. Setting up was once again very easy. Quagsire just isn't built for executing physical attacks, so its only attack, Dig, still didn't do anything at level 15. However, this time, my moves barely did anything to it as well, even at plus 6. Combined with resetting to not waste PP due to his double teams, it took me way too long to finally take care of it. According to my recordings, this literally took me 1.5 hours. But yeah, despite being level 15 and cutting my level by 25%, both Brick Break from Golem and Hammer Arm from Sudowoodo were still not instant kills. And thus I was able to dwindle their HP down easily whenever they used something useless like Sandstorm or Gyro Ball. Wish Catch was still ass, even though it somehow fissured me on my first try. Like, really dude? Hippowdon was very much a problem this time though. On top of being bulky as fuck, making it take 3 critical hits to kill, its attacks also did a bunch of damage. On top of that, it also tended to use Curse after a few hits, after which Earthquake OHKO'd. It was at this point that I figured out that the first move after a save state is always the same, but after that its second turn, third turn, etc. is just completely random. So if I save state on a Curse, then it will use Curse every time I load the save state. The move after that Curse, however, is always random. I have no idea why it does this, but yeah, that was pretty interesting to figure out, especially since this isn't the case on any GBA save state. Anyway, moving around Curse was super annoying, but eventually I got it done. Not that I ever felt like I was in trouble, but this thing wasted 2 hours of my time, on top of wasting 1.5 hours on Quagsire. Yeah. This wasn't fun. So I took a break for a few days to regain my sanity, but then it was time for Flint again. This time, Rapidash's Flare Blitz would one-shot me in Sun, regardless of how many X defenses I used. However, when there was no Sun up, he still had Bounce and Solar Beam that essentially gave me a free turn to set up. Now, this seems really easy, just set up when there's no Sun and save state to move around Flare Blitz RNG when he does use Sunny Day, but according to my recording, this once again took me a solid 1.5 hours to set up. I don't even know, okay? Resetting for good RNG apparently is really difficult. Anyway, after setting up and taking it down, I was very surprised to see Infernape's Flare Blitz not one-shot. Like, Infernape is pretty strong, but apparently Arceus is just a fucking beast, even at level 15. But yeah, other than that, Drifblim and Lopunny weren't a problem at all. I just had to make sure that Lopunny didn't charm me to lower my attack, and Drifblim didn't Will-O-Wisp me to, well, cut my attack as well. The only problem was Steelix in this fight, because it took about 12 million years to take down. Because not only was I doing no damage despite having plus 6 attack, but it kept screeching and killing me with Fire Fang. Annoying ass bitch. Anyway, much later, I finally beat this fucking Steelix, and I moved on to Lucian once again. Like I explained in the level 20 run, this Mr. Mime is pretty easy to set up against, because it continuously feels the need to set up screens, allowing me to use X items. Sure, Psychic damaged me for more than half HP, even at plus 6 defense, but the other 3 moves made my life very easy. Then after this fight really wasn't that hard. After easily KOing Mr. Mime, his Girafarig, Alakazam and Medicham weren't that hard to take down. All I had to do against Girafarig and Alakazam was use potions until they used any move that wasn't Psychic, since that was the only move that took more than half HP from me. And it really was the same story with Medicham. Drain Punch pretty much OHKO'd every time, but the other 3 punches, Thunder Punch, Fire Punch and Ice Punch, did just about half, but leftovers regained 6.25% of your HP, and because of this, I could take 2 of those punches every time, making me take it down slowly but surely. His Bronzong, however, was a fucking pain in the ass. A critical hit on this Bronzong with +6 attack literally did 15% at most, and half of the time it calm minded up and beat my ass with Psychic. Long story short, I had to make sure it didn't calm mind up at all, and this took fucking forever. According to my recordings, I recorded the fight against Bronzong over 5 separate days. But hey, I got it done eventually. Yay. For some reason that I can't recall, I only recorded the battles against Cynthia's Lucario and Garchomp, but setting up against the Spiritomb was actually pretty easy. Other than Lucario and Garchomp, this fight didn't have any threats, so I'm glad I recorded the most important part at the very least. I figured Lucario would be a big problem, but it turned out only Aura Sphere did enough damage to take me down to more than half HP. All I had to do was avoid Aura Sphere, and it only took a few Earthquakes to kill it in between. Cynthia's Garchomp on the other hand turned out to be the most threatening Pokémon in this level 15 run. At +6 defense, Brick Break instant killed on most of its damage rolls, and Earthquake also killed half of the time. Luckily, Garchomp runs Giga Impact, which left me with about 2 to 5 HP every time. Considering it has to recharge after, I was at least able to hit it for free. On top of that, it also runs Dragon Rush, which also killed most of the time, but it only has 85% accuracy. And thus, I could also capitalize on the 15% miss chance and get some free hits off that way. If this Garchomp had 4 moves that were 100% accurate and didn't recharge whatsoever, then this is where the run would end. So, thank you Cynthia for being stupid and giving this mon a pretty bad moveset. I guess. Anyway, after many RNG resets, a level 15 Arceus had beaten the Sinnoh League. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. It was at this point that I honestly was kind of tired of doing these Arceus runs, as they were very time consuming and kinda repetitive, considering sometimes I had to set up for literal hours. So because of this, I decided to calculate the absolute minimum needed to beat the league. It turned out my level 15 attempt wasn't far off, because the minimum level needed turned out to be level 13. Now this is where I could start explaining why it would not be possible at level 12, but let me just show you with some visuals instead. You didn't actually think I would just leave you guys with a boring calculation, did you? I've come too far to leave you guys with such a fucking bad ending. To get this done at level 13, I made a single change to the game plan. I figured it was an absolute must to outspeed most of the pokes in this league, but there was one Pokemon I needed to outspeed in particular. But I'll get back to that later on in the run. So yeah, in case you hadn't figured it out yet, I bought a bunch of X-Speeds to use as well. So here we are, hoping to destroy Aron for the 3rd time. Even though Dustox is a terrible Pokemon, after setting up 6 X attacks, it literally did about 1/4 of its HP. So welcome to Star Wars City, where time passes by extra slowly. Anyway, this Dustox wasn't the problem. It just took fucking forever to take down. However, the problem showed up immediately after in the form of a Heracross. Opposed to last time, this time Stone Edge, Close Combat and Mega Horn all one shot. On top of that, Night Slash did more than half HP as well. On top of that, my +6 return did literally nothing. This meant I had to reset to get consecutive crits on top of Heracross using Stone Edge or Mega Horn and missing it 100% of the time. I don't think I even have to explain that this made my blood boil after a while. After getting this stupid amount of RNG, the rest of the fight was at least some sort of a breather. And when I say breather, it still took me forever to get the others down. I mean, just look at how much a +6 Earthquake does to Drapion. Like, what the fuck is this? Other than that, nothing was able to touch me enough to be worth mentioning. It just was a very tedious task. Anyway, this was just Aron, and we've already established that Aron sucks ass, so this run was gonna be fun. Not really. Luckily, there was an easy fight up next, but it still was a Star War and a half. After setting up, Quagsire wasn't a problem, since Earthquake owned his ass while he was digging, and the rest of the fight went by just as easily. Especially since Sudowoodo decided to use consecutive sucker punches instead of Hammer Arm or Earthquake, which would have OHKO'd. But when I say easy fight, I mean easy up until her damn hippo. Not that this thing could kill me without cursing up or anything, but even critical hits did absolutely nothing. Combined with the citrus berry it was holding, and the full restore she had to use, since I couldn't kill it, this was so fucking annoying to get through. It was especially annoying because on top of having to give it a death by paper cuts, I also had to make sure it didn't curse a single time. Because then it would be able to one-shot me. But yeah, it could be worse, as I'll show you in these next fights. So we got back to Flint for the third time, but this time he was an actual nuisance. It all started with his Rapidash. This time Flare Blitz didn't need Sun to OHKO, and Solar Beam also KO'd half of the time. In order to set up, I had to completely avoid Flare Blitz at all times, and I had to reset as well to not die to Solar Beam half of the time. I think you can imagine, setting up took me a while, to say the least. After finally KOing this horse, he sent out this even more annoying Infernape. The only move that didn't do more than half was Thunder Punch, and even that did more than half HP like half of the time. On top of that, Flare Blitz OHKO'd every single time, and thus stalling out its PP while using potions wasn't even an option. So this meant I had to wait for it to use Thunder Punch, have it get a low damage roll to not do half HP, and then, on the turn I was attacking, I had to get a crit, and once again its Thunder Punch had to get a low damage roll. I know that might be hard to understand, but it was just as hard to pull off. Repeat what I just said about 4 times, and that was what my task was for this single Pokémon. If you can get this done without resetting once, I consider you the absolute Pokémon master. God, this sucked ass, man. Luckily, the remainder of the fight wasn't difficult. It was just another stall war, but they luckily could not kill me at all. But damn, this stupid monkey was the biggest hurdle so far. Unfortunately, this next fight against Lucian is where the run becomes impossible. Setting up against this Mr. Mime once again wasn't difficult at all. He used screens on his first 2 turns, and after using my first X special defense on the 3rd turn, his Thunderbolt didn't KO anymore. All I had to do was move around his Psychic, the other 3 moves were perfectly fine. It still took me a while to set up, but it didn't cause me any trouble whatsoever. After taking it down however, the run killer showed up in the form of a Medicham. In case you didn't notice, I had been using X speed throughout the previous 3 fights to outspeed some mons and make the fights go by quicker. But I also mentioned that I bought them to outspeed one specific Pokémon. By that Pokémon, I meant this Medicham. This Medicham does so much damage due to its pure power ability that outspeeding was absolutely necessary. I calculated that 4 X speeds would just about be enough, and thus I only used 4 when setting up against this Mr. Mime. The reason for this is that I didn't want to be +6, since his Bronzong later on would run Gyro Ball and completely destroy me because it's really slow. Now, while this was a nice idea and all, it didn't matter at all. You see, I forgot to take into account one crucial aspect of all the mons in this league. All of them have perfect IVs. And I think this is the perfect time to explain why I'm showing a level 13 run, which is impossible, instead of a level 14 run. And this is where you really have to pay attention, because I'm gonna be throwing percentages around left, right, center, you name it. You see, Medicham is one of the 2 most threatening Pokémon in this challenge. And the reason for this is that all of its moves are 100% accurate. And the only thing I can do to win is successfully tank its hits instead of waiting for it to miss anything and get a free attack off, like against Garchomp with Dragon Rush, Giga Impact, etc. It's not possible. So, my dumbass calculated this run without perfect IVs, and according to the Pokémon Showdown calculator, without perfect IVs, Medicham's Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch would do 38.2% to 56.8% damage at level 13, opposed to 53.7% to 64.8% at level 12. Considering leftovers recover 6.25% of your health, after 1 punch at level 12, it would have 52.55% HP, and would thus be 1.15% short of surviving another punch. The other extremely threatening Pokémon was Cynthia's Lucario, because all of its moves are also 100% accurate. Once again, I had calculated that its weakest move, Dragon Pulse, did 48.2 to 58.6% at level 13, opposed to 55.5 to 66.6% at level 12. This would leave me with 50.75% HP after leftovers, at which any move would OHKO. So yeah, those calculations are very nice, and good job past me, but they were completely incorrect. Just before attempting to beat Lucian in this level 13 run, I figured out that every Elite 4 member, and Cynthia as well, has Pokemon with perfect IVs in every single stat. What this meant is that Medicham would do 53.4% to 63.7% damage every time, even with a plus defense nature at level 13, opposed to 47.5 to 57.3% at level 14. After leftovers at level 13, it would leave me with 52.85% health, and thus Medicham would kill me with any move, leaving me with no room to hit it, and I would eventually be OHKO'd by Drain Punch anyway, if I stalled out its other punches with potions. Not that it mattered though, because I needed a plus special defense nature for Cynthia's Lucario, opposed to the plus defense nature I'm showing here. As you can see right here, at level 14, Lucario's weakest move did 55.7% to 65.5%, leaving me with 50.55% HP, which would have been a guaranteed 2 HKO with any move. Once again, I couldn't stall out its PP with potions, because it would be left with Aura Sphere, which would OHKO every time. It's just that strong, especially since it's stab. This is exactly why I needed to have a plus special defense nature. At level 14, its weakest move Dragon Pulse would do 49.1 to 59%, leaving me with enough health to survive another Dragon Pulse, especially after leftovers regeneration. This opposed to level 13, where Dragon Pulse would do 56.8% to 67.2%, leaving me with a maximum of 49.45% HP, which will make any move OHKO. Besides, this plus special defense nature would still make Medicham possible as well at level 14, because its punches, not Drain Punch, would do 52.4% to 62.2%, leaving me with 53.85% after leftovers, and making it just about possible to survive another one of those punches and get an attack off to slowly KO it. So yeah, the conclusion of this video is, the absolute lowest level at which the literal god of Pokemon can beat the Sinnoh League without using any bullshit moves is level 14. After that, Medicham and Lucario will straight up beat your ass, and it's just not possible. And now I know what you're thinking. I was faster than Medicham after 4x speeds, and I could have gone for Waterfall flinches and win that way. But I don't think I even need to explain that I consider that bullshit strats. Like, I might as well just use fucking Swagger or Mud Slap. I didn't allow that shit in the first place. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I wanted to make this as a little in-between easy video, but this took about 20 times longer than I would have hoped it would. Especially since I had to calculate everything down to literal 0.5 survival chances, etc. I know it doesn't really look like it in this video, but this took so much effort and time to pull off, man. It's incredible. Despite all that, I still feel like this video wasn't as entertaining as usual and maybe even a little boring. But I recorded all of this shit anyway, and I really wanted to just make a video out of it, man. I took so much time to do this anyway. But yeah, I still hope you somehow enjoyed my pain and suffering regardless. I'm just glad it's done, man. I really am. So yeah, if you like this video, then definitely leave a like rating. If you liked it even more, then definitely hit that subscribe button. And I'll be bringing you more Pokemon content very soon. Whether it's something that takes this much effort to pull off, I can't promise anything. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Peace.
All for the family and the fans, they are my sanity. They been the reason that all this shit happening. I got no safety net, they keep me balanced, and that's love. I live it and do it. I'm living through them and they live through my music. I must be dreaming. Cause when all my favorite artists were selling records, I was just scheming. Crack of dawn, mopping floors at the union, they have no meaning. To hunger to hustle.